First show of July. We're halfway through the year, Julia.
Uh-oh.
I trust you well.
I am.
Any hot tips?
Oh, keep your elevators moving.
Yeah. Should we tell them? Should we tell them what happened this morning?
Well, why not?
You were coming down, so I went out to meet you, and then you said, oh, it's not moving. So I said, well, I'll run up to your level. Went outside, ran up to Julia's level, got in the elevator with her. I said, yeah, we probably shouldn't do this. If something happens, we'll get stuck in the elevator.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we pushed the button. It went down a little bit and then stopped, and we were stuck in the elevator. Luckily, we got on the air on time. So welcome to our show number 847, everybody. I'm your host, Tom Eamon, and co-host Julia Vadekent. We're live again, as usual, from Studio B, where once again it's, it's not really summer. It's 60 degrees or give or take. And after being down in beautiful Newport Beach, man, it was nice and warm at the Balboa Yacht Club for the Rose Cup. I really enjoyed that a lot. We'll tell you about that. Lots going on. We have some breaking news. I didn't know if we'd get it all covered and in the show today, but we did.
Great.
Yeah, welcome to show number 847. We're at the starting line. Happy Tuesday and happy National Day, Julia, in what great hockey and sailing country?
Well, what hockey is.
Hockey
is Minnesota. Or
that's a state, not a country.
Oh, country.
We'll come back to that breaking transatlantic news. The yacht High Note was stricken in the North Atlantic last night. We have the latest photos and a video even about that. And luckily, everyone is safe, and we'll give you the details as they are now being towed to Europe from the middle of the North Atlantic. LA 28, you probably heard about the sailing venue decision that was announced yesterday. Sadly, our prediction and more has come true. More on that in today's show. U.S. Sailing, sad to say, also our prediction about what was going on there is even worse than we thought. We'll have the latest on that. Coaching Corner, John Emmett has his usual positive spin on current events across our beloved sport. Nice to hear from John. And we have not one, Julia, but two from your favorite, Alistair Murray. Two reports from our regular Aussie correspondent who is on walkabout. He's going from country to country in Europe. Today's checking in with two AAAAs from Ireland.
Ooh, good.
Believe it or not, WMRT and the WW, World Women's Match Racing Tour, both taking place up in gorgeous Marstrand for the GKSS Match Cup. Quick report on that. AC 38, it is crickets, while the lawyers continue to beaver away behind the scenes, or so one hears. Last leg, the Rose Cup, terrific weekend down there. Fabulous event, even more so than I was hoping or expecting. We'll tell you about that and the winners. And that save that for the last because it gives one
hope for the future. More
than hope for the future. It gives one hope for our sport as well. These kids are great. They're smart. They're, the 16-year-old.
Yes. 17,
18, 19. They can't have turned 21 in the year of the event. And I was so impressed, both on the water and on shore, with the competitors at the United States National Youth Match Racing Championship, a.k.a. Rose Cup. We'll get into that in the last leg. There is a photo of Dylan C. winning that.
The Rose Cup.
3-1 ahead of Sienna Nichols from the Balboa Yacht Club. Team Dylan, his team from the neighboring, just across the harbor, Newport Harbor Yacht Club. Was a fight to the finish and a terrific event, as I said. Julia,
yes. What
are we celebrating today?
It's a maple leaf.
Yes, from what country?
Oh, Canada.
Oh, Canada. It's Canada Day. And we want to wish on July 1st all of our Canadian friends and family. My wife's Canadian, and I won't tell the joke. Your wife's Canadian. Huh? You know the joke. Shall I tell it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the guy's in the bar with another guy, and they're talking about Canada. And Canada, I thought all there is up there is whores and hockey players. My wife's from Canada. Oh, what position does she play?
Yes.
Julia, it's Canada today, and we love that country, not only because they're a great sailing country, but a great hockey country as well, the other sport that I have played all my life. Canada Day celebrates that day in history when the British North America Act, now called the Constitution Act of 1867, just after the America's Cup, AC0, was put into place. This was an important end to a long struggle to get Canada recognized as a separate country from its British parents. 3 colonies were bound together to create what is now recognized as one of the best countries in the world to live in. For a long time, it had some issues with its currency, not performing well on the world stage, but recently it has risen to prominence, almost parity with the dollar, and held its own amongst first world countries. And I saw that while I was down in Newport Beach, the tariff negotiations, Donald Trump said, we're going to tariff you.
Right.
And they immediately took away that Crutonic tariff on U.S. tech companies that the prime minister.
They're not used to tariffs.
Well, they're not used to Trump either.
Right.
Who's saying what he means, what he says, and says what he means. So that's what's happening today on the 1st of July. It was back in 1868, however, that Governor General Lord Monck signed a proclamation requesting that Her Majesty Queen Victoria's subjects across the nation, that they celebrate Canada Day. Back to Queen Vic, as usual, Julia. Not only the America's Cup, but O Canada. Yet somehow, in keeping with Canada's reputation for humility, the country didn't make a big deal out of this event over the next few years. In fact, it took until 1917 before any official celebration of the event was held. Well, they weren't quite sure if they really wanted to be an independent country. And of course, there are the connections with Quebec and the French. They weren't quite sure how to sort all that out. And it took a full 10 years for another to be held. So in 1946, finally, what was then known as Dominion Day eventually became known as Canada Day. And in 1958, almost 100 years later, Canadians finally started celebrating it yearly with government-sanctioned events.
Don't want to rush into things.
You don't. And they're a very kind, polite society, arguably even more so than the Brits. Wonderful country. They all live along the southern border for the most part, and they're never going to be our 51st state, I suspect. We probably don't want them to be, and they certainly don't probably want to be.
No.
And Julie, you'd think poorly of me if I didn't have a video celebrating Canada Day.
I would.
Right? Okay,
Yes.
Here it is.
Okay, here we go. Single handing on Aloha, my Aloha 30, Canada Day. How appropriate is that? You got a single-handed spinnaker run, Georgia Strait, from those islands far back there with the white sail, the Skeety Island, passing the Sunshine Coast. Just over there is Seashell. And as you can see, we are flying our Canada Day symmetrical spinnaker. And
okay, now listen carefully and watch carefully, because for extra credit, what mistake does the gentleman make now?
lines are coming back, the sheet to the cockpit.
Empty cleat.
Now he calls it the sheet,
Organized here.
the spinnaker sheet.
The guy
And that he calls the spinnaker
also
guy.
coming back onto the winches. We
Yeah.
have a sail tie operating as a preventer, and the preventer is attached to the life rail with a half hitch, so dead quick to undo. Oh, look at that. The sail is collapsing. What should I do? Let's crank in on the guy.
He trims the guy. Not correct.
If the wind direction is changed, which it has, oops,
Oops.
we'll also let the pole forwards. And bingo wingo.
Bingo wingo. The kite is full again. Now, Julia, nice guy. Do you know where in the world that was taped, where it was filmed?
Off the shore of Canada.
Well, maybe. It was actually in the strait, a certain strait. You want me to show you the map, or shall we talk about what error he made in terms of definitionally on his yacht? Well, let's start with the definitions, because he called what is the spinnaker guy. That's the rope coming from, the line coming from the spinnaker pole corner of the kite, the tack, and coming back, he called it the sheet. And he called the leeward line coming from the clue of the kite. He called that the guy. And of course, everybody on here knows that's not the case. The guy is the windward line and the sheet is the leeward line. And okay, so nonetheless, it was a nice video. He single-handedly kept his, and he's single-handing, and he kept his kite full.
Yes.
Now, where in the world is he? He's actually in the Strait of Georgia, which is between Vancouver and Vancouver Island in a beautiful part of the world.
Yes.
And you see, I don't know where he was. I couldn't identify any of those islands to which he was referring.
I know really well.
But I'm going to put a green square around that area down in Washington State. You see the town Anacortes?
Yep.
Stingray will tell you where that is. That's just north of where he lives, just north of Seattle. And for extra credit, what famously took place in Anacortes. And for an additional clue, I'll turn around here and point to the trimaran.
Oh, where it was built.
Behind us. That is in, well done, Julia. That is where the trimaran was built in 2009. That's not Ohio, it's off the shore. That is actually up in Vancouver. And that is where that took place, that video, in a beautiful part of the world, the Strait of Georgia, BC, meaning British Columbia, the westernmost state or province, as they call it up north. And that's the area down to Anacortes, Washington, USA. As Jeff Ogle puts it correctly, the home of the doggy. The Deed of Gift yacht, and Stingray, who's on here, was the first non-team member to see it. He saw it in the boat shed. We took him in one day. He'd driven me up there, picked me up to the airport. I was going up as we were going to launch it and sail it.
Yep.
And he kindly picked me up at SeaTac at Seattle-Tacoma Airport, and he got to see the boat before anybody else. Didn't tell anything. It didn't tell anyone anything. And then I gave a talk that night at the Anacortes Yacht Club, attended by people far and wide. It was a huge turnout, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Stingray, thanks again for your kind support. Yep, Ed Worley is reminding us that Oracle Racing built their AC yacht there indeed. Julia, what else are we celebrating today?
I don't know.
Our FOSI.
Of course.
Those who support us via patreon.com, especially patreon.com/join/sailing illustrated. Without your support, we would not survive here. We would not have a studio. We would not have all this. Whoops. How's that for a great shot, huh?
Yes.
We wouldn't have all this equipment. We wouldn't be able to pay our streaming fees because, unlike Julia, who is not poor, especially with the stock market breaking records again today.
Oh yeah, but wait,
Julia, where's the private plane you're gonna take all the FOSI?
Oh, I'm not gonna buy it. I'm just
you're
gonna
charter it.
Yeah.
And how about the big mega yacht? I thought you and Andrew McIrvin were going to team up and find us a mega yacht to go on when we go watch these events.
Well, that's Andrew's side of the job.
Thank you. Seriously, thank you to all of you for your support, whether you watch regularly, whether you come on as a guest, and especially those of you who are patrons via Patreon. We are deeply appreciative. I'm headed to Michigan tomorrow for my annual 4th of July sojourn back home. There will be no show this Friday, the 4th of July, our Independence Day in the U.S. of A. But I do plan to, unless there's a breaking America's Cup news, Julia, and there may be. We shall see. But I will do a show from Michigan with Clark Chapin, I expect, next Tuesday, the 8th of July, a special show live from Portage Yacht Club, my home club, just outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan. No show again next Friday because that's the travel day. I'm coming back from Michigan, back here to San Francisco, be in Beach Street Yacht Club for the weekend, and then we'll do our regular shows. And Roads to the Governor's Cup on the 15th, 18th, 22nd, and 25th with Andy Rose, and we're going to try to get all the competitors for the 58th Governor's Cup on those shows from around the world.
I love those shows.
Sweden, Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, the U.S. Have I missed any countries? And that should be a lot of fun, Roads to the Governor's Cup shows. And then on Tuesday, the 29th, I'll be down in Newport Beach again at Balboa Yacht Club for our special preview show with Christine Gribben, who is the chair. She's a board of directors member of the board of Balboa Yacht Club, and she is the chair yet again.
For life.
Yeah, we call her CFL,
Yeah.
chair for life of the Governor's Cup Committee. And I hope to get her sister on the show as well, because her sister is going to be the chief umpire for the Governor's Cup.
Oh, good.
They're all good umpires down there, but
Yeah.
no show on Friday, August 1st, because we will be out on the water for the Governor's Cup that day, and then we'll be back at it regularly every Tuesday and Friday on Tuesday, 5th of August. That's our show schedule upcoming. All shows as usual at 1300 Pacific, 1600 Eastern, 2000 UTC this time of year. Clark Chapin says he'll make the show a week from today. If he can make it, he will. He's going to be in Sandusky on Monday, probably judging. He says he'll be there for the Area E, which is the Great Lakes area, Sears Cup, which is our national triple-handed junior championship, and the Area E qualifier apparently is taking place down on the south shore of Lake Erie at Sandusky Sailing Club, I assume, Clark. Hope you're back in time for our Tuesday show, which will be at 1300 Pacific, 1600 Eastern. Clark, you should be back in time. All these excuses Pindar is saying. Why don't you just go live wherever you are, whenever you are, right?
Yes.
Okay, the breaking news. We told you about the transatlantic race. There's been an issue overnight. Thank God everybody is safe, or appears to be, or so we hear. Last week ago, Wednesday, that race started from Castle Hill in Newport, Rhode Island. We told you on Friday's show about the winner, at least first to finish, was Choose 2, Christian Zugel's Volvo 70. No surprise, biggest boat in the race, and they are a superb team. We celebrated them on Friday's show for having taken the line honors in that race. They've had a hell of a year between the RORC Transat race and then more. But here's what happened overnight is that the yacht High Note, it's a Baltic 51. You can see them. They're out in the middle, really almost in the dead middle of the Atlantic, but about a third of the way from that exclusion zone. This is the exclusion zone where they keep everybody out of that because of the biologics, because of the large fauna, as they call them, but there's a lot of whales and other activity normally in that area. So I believe that's why that is an exclusion zone. They all had to sail either north, or in this case, they all sailed south of it. And then the High Note here struck something right out in this patch of water last night. And the word came through to New York Yacht Club about 2300 Eastern time that something had happened. The boat was stricken, and they made it through the night okay, trying to figure out what was going on. And this Baltic 51 has been, up until literally a few minutes ago, in distress on the North Atlantic. So this is a boat belonging to Gary Knackman. Get rid of the green square. Gary Knackman and Dale Harmon.
Mm-hmm.
And they're racing across the ocean from Newport to the Lizard. Here is a picture, a photo. I mean, it's unbelievable how cool this is, because I don't know if it's a requirement that the boats have Starlink, but most of the boats apparently now do carry Elon Musk's Starlink system, those big flat panels that go up to the satellites. And forget about sat phones and that sort of stuff. It's astonishing how good the connection is. In fact, we had two Starlinks as our off the broadcast boat last weekend down in Newport Beach.
We should have one here.
Why? We got an internet connection that's faster than anything you could do on Starlink.
No,
hardwired.
That's not true.
No, it is. We got a hardwired internet connection that's superb, Julia.
Well, so
And
is
rocks.
that.
You know, we don't have to worry about anything, clouds or weather or anything else. But anyway, there's the picture. As another yacht, a Hansa 430 called Avanti, also from the USA, they were given the Lat Lan by New York Yacht Club and the RORC officials, and they zeroed in on them. They found them this morning, and that is a photo as they approached High Note, and they radioed back. They phoned back on the Starlink, hey, we found them, and there they are. They closed up to them, and I'm not sure if the diver went down from aboard High Note or from aboard Avanti, but the diver went down and checked the rudder and the propeller, and the word was that the rudder is crotonic, Luckily, it didn't get punched through the bottom of the boat, and they didn't start to take on water, as John Sangmeister did when his boat had a similar
Oh, that's
situation.
right.
You remember that when they
Yeah.
had the similar situation in the
Pacific.
yeah, it was in the Pacific. It was in the Transpac,
Right.
not the Transat. And also, it turned out their propeller was damaged severely in this same strike of whatever they hit. And they're not sure what they hit, if it was a biologic or a container or something else. So it's a serious situation for the boat. Luckily, as you can all see, those of you who are yachties will recognize the surface of the water is pretty tame, pretty benign, light air, and no huge seaway. And then, much to everybody's pleasant surprise, along came a French ship. We're not quite sure of the name of it. Came along, hearing the stuff on radio and whatever else, AIS, and they came along, and they've been standing by. And now, just in the last hour, I've heard from Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin and Claire Harrington, both sides of the Atlantic, that they are taking the crew from High Note onto the French ship, and the French ship is taking High Note under tow, and they're going to take them back to either England or France or somewhere.
Oh, good for them.
So they're preparing. They're trying to get the boat under tow. High Note is that white boat there, obviously in the foreground with all the fenders out. And here, in fact, not only do we have photos, we have a video
Wow.
from just a couple hours ago as they're getting the boat under tow. And long story short, it was successful. And they are apparently now towing slowly toward the east, toward Europe. And this is the coda. This is the PS, the postscript from Claire just a few minutes ago. She's saying the French ship is commercial. The crew transferred to the ship and are towing High Note to somewhere in the English Channel. And the French ship is loaded with cargo of high-end liquor.
Yay.
High Note's crew hit the jackpot.
Lovely.
Bravo Zulu, and you can see Avante has been standing by, and no doubt Avanti, I guess it is, the Hansa 430E, they will apply to the race committee for redress and no doubt get time added back into or subtracted off their elapsed time for the time that they stood by taking care of the yacht. So Bravo Zulu, thanks again to Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin and to Claire Harrington on both sides of the Atlantic for that breaking news this morning. Steve Atkins saying, terrific rescue, best case scenario, and hopefully the tow will be successful indeed. Steve Gruber says, I know Avanti, it's from my club. Tell us the name of your club again, Steve, please, in the chat, if you would.
Yes.
David James reminding us that those containers floating 6 inches below the surface are scary. I don't understand why they don't have salt plugs so that they dissolve.
When they sink.
Yeah, they sink when they dissolve, I think is what he means. When the salt plugs dissolve, then the containers sink.
Yes. That's good to know. I didn't know that.
CTM, Claire the Magnificent, Claire the Brilliant, for the win. Rick Banro is saying, Yarvahe, isn't that the sailing cargo ship out of Saint-Malo? I don't know the name of it, actually. Cedar Point Yacht Club, terrific. I used to sail Fireballs there, Steve, back in the day. Cedar Point Yacht Club on Westport, Connecticut, the North Shore of Long Island. And that's the breaking news. Let's get to the other news from yesterday that had all of us a bit disappointed. I have not yet, Julia, found a single person who thinks splitting the venues. See the Solomon here?
Yeah.
I thought that was a great photo. That was sent by one of our French fosi, in fact.
Yes.
An American living in France. And they're about to split the baby, which is what they've done now with the Olympic venues for sailing in LA 28. The cities of LA and Long Beach announced the finalized sailing venue plan for 2028 Olympic Games. Just what we predicted weeks ago. LA 28 Games announced the final venue plans for sailing competition shared between the two cities, optimizing competition conditions for athletes and fan experiences at both locations. Julia, gag me with a spoon.
That means whoever said that has never been there.
Well, as I said, this past weekend, I'm down in Newport Beach, and you got all these SoCal sailors there. Plus, they're getting ready for the Trans-Pac, which starts this week. I think the starts are Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday this week. The slower boats first, and I may have that wrong. Maybe Thursday, whatever it is. It's in the next week to 10 days. So there was a big Trans-Pac send-off party at Balboa Yacht Club after racing concluded, after the prize giving on Sunday for the Rose Cups. And you know me.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming. I'm sitting there behaving myself mildly, politely.
Sort of.
No, I am.
Yeah.
And everybody comes over. That was great. Rose Cup was great. The commentary was great. We listened, yada, yada. Way, what do you think of this venue situation before we had the decision on Monday?
Yeah.
And to a person, young, old, and in between, politically left, right, and center, everybody said it's ridiculous. It's patently absurd. Why go up there by the prison? Why go up there by the port? Why go up in what is the worst crime-ridden neighborhood in L.A., and particularly East San Pedro, which has the worst gang activity and crime activity in all of L.A., even worse than East L.A.
Really?
Yes. I had stats sent to me this morning by Mark Michelson and others about the crime. And not to say nothing of that, to have now the sailing teams, the national authorities, to have to do weather studies at both places, have to get their coaches and their
really
meteorologists and their it just is patently absurd. But that's the decision that came down yesterday that we predicted months ago, frankly. And there is San Pedro. You can see the LA Yacht Club, which turns out to be a major culprit in this because they've been working hard, and even more so than we realized, to try to get some of the sailing events over there to Pedro and out of Long Beach. And you can see just above that the prison, the federal prison on Terminal Island. And the crime here in San Pedro, in this area, and particularly in the eastern part, is sad to say, it's sad.
But is there any place for them to stay around there?
Well, they're going to stay in the Athletes Village, which will be
in Long Beach.
The Athletes Village presumably for these sailors is going to be at either USC or UCLA. That's where they're using the dorms in those two universities. Yeah. So these sailors are going to be staying in a different dorm, in a different village than the sailors in Long Beach, because they're staying at the what's the name of that college down there? The Long Beach State. Yeah, Long Beach State University, and they're putting all the athletes for the 4 or 5 or 6 events that are taking place in Long Beach, including sailing, are going to stay in that. Because, try to go on the freeway between Long Beach and LA in the best of times, let alone during the Olympics. It's only 10 miles between the venues, but by road in the LA, famously awful LA traffic, in any event, follow the money. This is pure and simply a political decision and a financial decision. As Ed Worley says,
can't be a financial situation because
it's bringing money to that guy McCosker's district and potentially to the LA Yacht Club, who've been fighting, it turns out, like crazy to get this. Ed Worley says this game allows LA politicians to siphon off harbor dollars, meaning from the port of LA, for pet projects and kickbacks.
Of course.
Clark Chapin is saying, on the other hand, the USS Iowa could make an awesome race committee boat. The Iowa is docked there in the, it can't move under its own power. Kealoha 5 is saying 3 hours of commuting daily.
Oh, God.
So this is just not correct. We've been telling you, in fact, that it's not correct. We've been telling you to follow the money because, once again, Julia, the state of California is $80-some-odd billion in debt, and they don't have money to help out. The city of L.A. is $1 billion in debt, and they have promised to cover the first $270 million of the Olympic costs. How are they going to pay that 270, make it $300 million to the LA 28? So they're hoping that they're going to get money from the Port of LA, which is sitting on $1.5 billion of cash.
Maybe that helps solve that
But
problem.
the LA Yacht Club, which is right there next to the port, and of which port commissioners, several of them are members.
Yes.
And their clubhouse is aging and somewhat decrepit and out there in the middle of that parking lot. So maybe they're going to get something out of this as well. So let's carry on here with the slides. This is from an article yesterday. in the Sports Examiner. The 5-ring circus, Olympic Games 2028, Los Angeles. The stomping and screaming campaign, which he was literally doing, by LA City Council member Tim McCosker, paid off on Monday when the LA 28 organizers announced a split of the 2028 sailing competition between the already announced Belmont Shore Marina in Long Beach and the Port of Los Angeles in San Pedro, as the Angelinos call it. All of us who speak Spanish would say San Pedro, but the locals say San Pedro. So, in fact, they just say Pedro. Sailing had been projected for Long Beach for many years, and an Olympic classes regatta has been held there for decades. But McCosker blew up the 28 March meeting of the LA City Council, loudly demanding that sailing be held in his district in San Pedro. The announcement said the events will be split thus. Quote, the Port of Los Angeles will host 6 boats, they're now calling boats and boards, which we've been doing on this show for years, will host 6 boat events, men's and women's dinghy, men's and women's skiff. That's, as you know, the Laser or the Ilka, and then the 49er and 49er FX, respectively. The mixed dinghy, which is the 470, and the mixed multi-hull, which, as you know, is the NACRA 17. Belmont Shore and Long Beach will host 4 board events, men's and women's windsurfing, and men's and women's kite. So the kites and the windsurfers will be in fact, off the beach, because they have a nice beach in Long Beach, as well as all the marinas and everything else. The agreement is a notable victory for former Los Angeles Yacht Club Commodore and director Kelly Marie. She's the one who put up that change.org petition, if you may recall us talking about it on this show, who approached McCosker with the idea to bring sailing events to Pedro, where the sport was held for the 1932 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. There, Commodores, ladies and gentlemen, is the staff Commodore, which on the West Coast means past Commodore. I believe she was Commodore in 2022. I'm not 100% sure because their website is Croutonic. Staff Commodore Kelly Marie of the L.A. Los Angeles Yacht Club. True yachtsman, no doubt.
No doubt.
There is her board, or their board. She is no longer on the board. The current Commodore is Commodore Marjorie Irvin and her LA Yacht Club board. But wait, Julia, there's more.
Oh, my.
This came in this morning from our good friend Richard Gladwell, who's been investigating and is about to write an article. He says, A, sailing or yachting wasn't an official Olympic sport in 1932. Well, it was an Olympic sport, but it was very down because of the venue, which was in the Port of LA. 23 teams sailed from 11 countries in 4 events only. The events were the Snowbird. We told you about that. The single-handed dinghy from Newport Beach, in fact. We showed you pictures of those boats. And that was the only event that the Snowbird appeared in, the only Olympics that the Snowbird appeared in. They had 6 and 8-meter rule boats and the Star Class. D, they planned to run the Snowbird racing in the morning because it is so rough and windy outside there in Hurricane Gulch, as it's called, outside of the harbor. Much more moderate and better racing in Long Beach, by the way. But they said we better run the single-handeds inside the breakwater in the morning. But there was no wind before the sea breeze comes in, because when the sea breeze comes in, Julia, it comes in up there in Hurricane. That's why it's called, around Point Furman, they call it Hurricane Gulch. I've sailed in that area any number of times, as have a lot of people on here. They only got 2 entries in the 8-meter class, who unsurprisingly both medaled. In 2025, they got 12 knots on the first day of Sail GP and 6 knots on the second inside the breakwater. Because, again, you have quite a differential between inside and outside. And Sail GP was such a success that in 2025 that it was dropped from the season 6 calendar. Well, as was San Francisco, but we know San Francisco had no money. At least the Port of LA was spending money on Sail GP.
Follow the money.
So that courtesy of our good friend and Fozy Richard Gladwell, the New Zealand editor of sail-world.com, Julia.
Yes.
Now, I've done a little digging this morning into the LA Yacht Club, which is, I've spoken there a couple times. I'm sure the people there all have a heart of gold, probably even Kelly Murray, the senior series yachtswoman that she is. But one hears they're in the market for a new LA Yacht Club clubhouse, because if that's going to be the headquarters for the Olympics, they have to have something somewhat more suitable, august, presentable than their current clubhouse.
Yes.
And why don't they just do it on their own like virtually every other club does, Julia?
Mm-hmm.
I looked into their finances this morning on ProPublica, the nonprofit explorer in California. If you look at their revenue in 2023, from 2011 to 2023, you will see that they had a bit of a spike, and then it has been marking time or going downhill. Their expenses in 2023 have been rising.
Mm-hmm.
Their assets, meanwhile, have been steadily declining since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Problems in River City or in LA Yacht Club. And I've gone back and looked at every year since 2020. In 2020, they lost $125.
Mm-hmm.
In 2021, they made barely $7,500 revenue in excess of expenses, net income. In 2022, they lost $80,000.
Mm-hmm.
In 2023, they lost $34,000. They've been losing. Their net worth has gone down from $1.5 million, which isn't a huge sum, $1.5 million, to now down to $1 million. And they are hoping, or so one hears, to get a refurbished, if not new clubhouse out of this deal. So no wonder they were pursuing it.
Yes, they need
so
it
heavily. I don't know if they need it or not. Terminal Island does not sound great. No, David James, but it's also the traffic in and out of the port. It's one of the world's busiest ports. It's along with Long Beach, two of the busiest ports here in this country, let alone the busiest port by far on the West Coast. It's Croutonic. So, again, I can't find a sailor anywhere who thinks this is a good idea. I'm looking through all of your comments right down to Christian Price. Dreadful decision, in my opinion. Ed Worley, the LA City Council, is trying to ban the use. Oh, this is a good point. Ban the use of cars during the Olympics, no parking, etc. LA is begging for $2 billion to fix their almost non-existent mass transit system. What a mess! And team cohesion has been destroyed in this decision. Christian Price down in Australia is saying. Yeah, and now John Emmett, who I said in the show notes at the top of the show, but very sadly done and dusted and time to move on. John's always Pollyanna and optimistic. Here we go. But, John, if we don't criticize the Croutonicism, it may repeat itself. Sail World NZL, you know who that is?
Yep.
Richard Gladwell saying the boards and boats will not be on at the same time. So no commute, but it is meaning they're going to run the boards first down in Long Beach, then they're going to run the boats up in Pedro. But it is still completely dopey. How does sailing win out of this? So much downside. No less an expert and veteran of our beloved sport covering it, that is, than Richard Gladwell, a.k.a. Sail World NZL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. It's just on and on and on. Ed Worley, I grew up in L.A., sailed in Marina del Rey, San Pedro, and Orange County. This is typical L.A. mess. Moving on, nothing to see, just the usual. James Appel on the East Coast, who's a finance guy, says their finances look like the rest of the state of California. What do you think of that, Julia?
I think, unfortunately, he's right.
On and on. Groomer's we're not going to make any more political posts. But, Emmett is right to this degree, is that at some point, just because the horse is dead doesn't mean we have to stop beating it, Clark Chapin. But the truth is, it's done, and now hopefully World Sailing and U.S. Sailing and all of the sailors, the clubs in Southern California will make the best of it. But there's a lot of structural problems with this setup. Mm-hmm. Moreover, Julia, John Emmett has been reporting in texts that you will have seen on our FOSI thread and elsewhere that apparently World Sailing is being forced by the IOC to shorten the races up, to shorten the window of racing, meaning the number of days, shorten that up, to keep trying to squeeze our sport down to fewer and fewer broadcast hours, which does not bode well.
Mm-mm.
And as John Emmett is saying, I think we all knew it was coming. Well, we've been predicting it, sadly, for months. But if, as Paul Henderson said, if we don't start to put our hand down, our fist down, if we don't start to go in and bang the table, people are so afraid, the IOC is going to get mad at us and kick us out of the games. They're going to kick us out of the games if we keep rolling over and playing dead.
Right.
If we keep acting like wimps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not on fire today, Pedro Foiling Sailor. I'm I'm just my usual.
Rant.
You don't see this often because we don't often have something that is so croutonic, including and especially the communication that came out of World Sailing. You talk about playing dead and rolling over. They couldn't even, they couldn't even put out a communication that was somewhat. Well,
it'll be difficult and more expensive, but we'll do it anyway.
Right, Julia, exactly. You should have been writing. So this release came out on their website. Not a picture of the venue, not a picture of sailing, not a picture, but of smoggy L.A. World Sailing welcomes LA 28 venue confirmation. You can say it, Julia. Gag me with a spoon.
Oh.
So here's their release. An excerpt. The events will be staged consecutively with the boards up first up in Long Beach, followed by the boat racing. The boards and the boats. Henderson will like this. The boat racing portion of the sailing competition, which will be held in the port of L.A. By utilizing both Long Beach and the port of Los Angeles, LA 28 will showcase the best of both locations. Yeah, right. Placing the dynamic board events at the heart of vibrant Long Beach shore. That's true. Along with beach volley, all these other sports are happy as hell to be down in Long Beach. Beach volleyball, open water swimming, and coastal rowing. Get this next little bit. While creating a dedicated world-class stage at the port, in the port of Los Angeles to elevate the athlete and spectator experience for the boat classes.
How do you watch?
You can't. They're going to be outside the breakwater. You can't see a damn thing except on television. This is craziness. David Graham, CEO of World Sailing, said, quote, Belmont Shore in Long Beach and the Port of Los Angeles will provide wonderful sailing. He does not believe this. Will provide wonderful sailing conditions, which will give all our athletes a platform to demonstrate the skill, athleticism, and strategic thinking required to succeed in our sport. Julia?
I hope nobody...
Read it.
You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not quite my conclusion to this segment.
Mm.
You can see I spent some time on it this morning. And yeah, we're going to have to get positive. We're going to have to make the best of it, as we sailors always do.
Yes.
Both the teams from coming in from around the world. But, the teams have been practicing Long Beach for a coon's age, as we say in Michigan, in the vibrant heart of Long Beach shore.
Mm-hmm.
And now the dinghies, the boats, are being forced to move for political and financial reasons only, not for sailing reasons, not to make it easier for the teams, but for the sake of politicians and money and the greed, I should say, of the LA Yacht Club. So other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Mm-hmm. That's all I can say.
I hope everybody's safe. That worries me.
Well, yeah, exactly. And Marseille's not the safest place. We can worry about safety. But at the end of the day, when you have the option of Long Beach and as a venue, or even, you could have gone to Newport Beach, you could have gone a lot of different places. You could have gone to Marina del Rey. But to do it here, it's simply, Kilo 05 says it's not over. You really think? We'll see. As we told you in April, follow the money. San Pedro is croutonic, and we'll see what happens next. But that's the decision. That was Pedro Foiling. Speaking of Pedros and Pedros, we'd never call him a Pedro. But Peter Stevenson, a.k.a. Pedro Foiling Sailor, that was my line, Tom. Lipstick on a pig. Yep, indeed. If I stole that from you, Pedro, thank you. our Australian friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a segment in the can from him too, remember, Pedro's personal perspective.
Oh, yeah.
But this show is dragged on with this breaking news, and he's even giving, he's got now Australia, the 12 meter, and he's doing great things with it. We had him on the show, a long show with him. So it's good stuff that he's doing. And now he's interviewed the actor from the movie Wind, and he's sent me a video of that. I got still sorting out some copyright. I don't want a copyright strike for playing that video, but I think Pedro, I have that solved. And in due course, it's an evergreen piece, so we'll play it at the right moment. But Peter, who's still in Europe, I believe, is going back to Australia, and he's under great demand now to be talking at Rotary clubs and so on.
Oh, good.
Raising money for his program to use Australia, not Australia 2.
Yeah.
Australia to benefit wounded warriors.
Oh, good.
Fabulous project that he told us about here.
Yes.
Hamish Ross, he will give him the final word. Money over sailors in the sport. Yarvahe, Weymouth is looking like the Upper East Side now. Yeah, it was. Weymouth was a fabulous venue. Sydney was a fabulous venue. L.A. in 84 in Long Beach when all the classes were there, all 8 classes. It was a fabulous event. The weather was nice. The breeze was great. Everyone was together. We had our beloved sport all in one place for the Olympics, the way it should be. Okay, San Pedro, as you all know, is not correct. Finally, another CODA or PS. Do you think U.S. Sailing is covering any of this? Not a peep. That is the front page of their website, U.S. Sailing website. There is nothing on it about this whole L.A. madness or about the Rose Cup. They're one of their most important, arguably, national championships these days. And why? Well, one suspects it's because they are, as we've been telling you, sadly, in serious financial strife. We told you last Friday that it wasn't over yet, and we hoped that they were going to find a way out of it because they lost $2 million again last year, having lost millions the year before, and so much so that they couldn't pay their bills until they, believe it or not, Julia, they took up a collection from their board. And I now can confirm, I've had a third source confirm that the board kicked in hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep the place afloat temporarily while they try to find even more money. But they so far have not. And as we told you on Friday's show, there was an audit committee meeting, a phone call yesterday. And not only is U.S. Sailing upside down, but one hears the treasurer, whose name I will not use, but the treasurer told them they cannot pay their bills in August. It's done. And the auditors, you know how you get that report from your auditors, the dreaded report saying, we cannot certify you as able to continue operating.
Fortunately, I don't know about that.
Well, I don't either, but I've never been involved in something that went bust. But when the auditors tell you that if you continue operating, and they tell you that we don't see how your business is going to continue in one piece, you don't have the cash to keep going. You're going to, and if you incur then more liabilities, the board itself becomes liable.
Oh yeah,
and not just for the finances, but criminally liable. So I think U.S. Sailing, as we said, sadly, a long time ago, that after this audit committee call, they may be headed for totally upside down. Again, I'm not going to say they're totally upside down, but multiple sources, again, tell us they're out of cash. And after already tapping their board of directors, I don't know how they're going to survive.
Yeah, and Chris Exley is saying tough situation for Charlie Enright.
Yes. And that is a really good point, because Charlie, who was on the show, and we're all wishing him well, Alistair Murray has offered to give him help. Andrew McIrvin is,
Right.
they're going to give him advice, any help, a shoulder to cry on, whatever, because these guys are famously effective, both from England and from Australia. And any of us around the country, I'm sure, would do the same. And I'm going to tell you the story now because I know what Charlie's going through. I know personally what he is going through.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I went to work for USYRU, long story short,
Yeah.
I was hired not as the executive director, but as the One Design director to fill in, to take over for the One Design Olympic department from Bill Benson, who had been promoted to executive director, to try to sort out the upside down, what was then USYRU finances.
Mm-hmm.
Bill hired me to fill his shoes as the one design director, moved to Newport, and here we go. Just as I was literally packing up to drive to Newport, he called and said, sorry, it's off. This place is the Titanic. It's sinking. Don't come out here. I'm quitting and going back to Geneva, back to Wisconsin, and it's over with. Well, about 2 hours, no joke, 2 hours later, the then president, Dick Latham, long gone, great guy, called me up and said, please fly over to Chicago. I'd like to talk with you. Yeah. So I put on my little blue blazer, went out to Detroit Metro Airport, got on a plane, flew over to O'Hare, spent the night with Dick and Mary and Mrs. Mary Latham. Went to a jazz show. He knew I liked jazz. They love jazz and music buffs. And then he said, not quite patting me on the head and kicking me in the ass, he said, my boy, go back to Michigan, get in your car, drive to Newport. It will all be okay. And I did. And my dad said, you're going to be the cruise director on the Titanic.
Yeah.
And he
was right, of course.
And he said, you know what? You're never going to, you'll be back. But at least you got a job. If you come back here, you can come back to the family business and everything will be fine. My wife was not amused. She's now in her completing her master's degree in nursing at the University of Michigan. Tom, what are we doing? You just been told this place is going under. Why are we going out there? Well, I like Newport. I've never been. It's the cultural, spiritual heart of sailing. Let's go. So I drove out there and busted my pick and cut the staff back. And the then secretary treasurer really saved the place, a thistle sailor named Roger Brett, and the president and a few others. And in part because I was just a kid and they knew they wanted to kind of help me.
Yeah.
And everybody pitched in, and hopefully this is what's going to happen for Charlie.
Yes, I hope so too.
Everybody pitches in because he's a new guy, not as young as I was, but taking over, what is he, 40-ish, but help him take the place over and save it. And I commend Charlie to all of you. I implore all of you here in the States, at least, to help him. And again, thanks to Alistair and Andrew McIrvin and others who have helped. And I know Claire Harrington and others at New York Yacht Club are also trying to help. But there's been so much croutonicism, including money taken out of one of our Olympic support foundations.
Oh, yes.
That was not supposed to be taken out of the Olympic Support Foundation
at all,
and used for general purposes.
Right.
For the G&A. It's not correct, Julia.
I know.
Not correct. So we'll see how that all pans out. Okay, enough of bad news. We're going to get on to some good news here because this event, as I just said, gives one great hope going forward, not only for the sport, but for our world. But before we get to that, another guy who always gives us good hope is our coaching corner and our coaching expert and good friend from the UK, John Emmett, with his coaching corner report from yesterday.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. Hope you're feeling well and well rested. That's something which is very important that probably both myself and Lily struggle with because everybody wants to lead a busy life and it's very easy to burn the candle at both ends. So if you haven't done so already, especially can you subscribe to the YouTube channel because that's probably the best place for keeping all the content because it looks like Facebook is going to be getting rid of the live content, which obviously means all the comments and so on, which are such an important part of the show, and that will be saved on YouTube. So yeah, if you subscribe and get that bell so you get notifications, it's very good, about half an hour before the show kicks off, sort of finish what you're doing and hopefully join us all live more or less twice every week, 52 weeks a year. Very few breaks, but Tom will obviously say what they are. But today I wanted to go back to focusing about the parasailing and specifically Jazz Turner. That's somebody I used to coach at Weirwood Sailing Club, and I still have very mixed feelings about the club closing. It's such a shame. The only people who did well out of that was the lawyers, which I suspect is almost the same thing at the moment with the America's Cup, but I digress. So by the time this hits you, I think Jazz, who's a disabled lady, will have sailed all around the UK as part of Project Fear. So by the time the show's live, I think that we've done them. Project Fear's absolutely smashed their charitable targets, and I'll drop a link in the comments as long as this piece isn't show too late in the show. But yeah, the idea was to be the first disabled person to do that. And, you know, she had a tough time of it. It was only a few days ago she inadvertently fell asleep. And that's something that happens to us all. And she ended up grounded. There's quite a few photos on social media. But fortunately, after extensive checks with the Coast Guard, etc., it wasn't too serious. So she's sailing on. And that is such an important thing. And the parasailing, you know, it's not only about world sailing ticking the boxes and sending that information to the IPC to show that we have a sport that's widely participated on, you know, on a global scale. It's not just the rich M&As which are doing it, which is what we see in some parts of the sport. Parasailing really is accessible to everyone. But I think if I was on that committee, and I guess they'll meet by the end of the year to start reviewing things, and there will be an update, I try every single month, but if social media was flooded, it'll be hard to ignore. And that is something which we're trying very hard to do. So Jazz is just one example of an amazing parasailer we should all support. And I'm going to try and do some series of more in-depth interviews so that you can really meet some of the personalities, just like, you know, Burling and Slingsby and Goody and all the rest of it. I think that creating heroes is incredibly important, and I said Jazz certainly is one. And if she's watching, huge shout out to her. Very, very well done. We're all so proud of you. You could do it, and that's just another really good news story in what's probably a bit of a troubling time across the world at all. And this idea, I'm going to do also a Castle Cove thing, just to show what things like at club level, those videos, just to show sailing is accessible to everyone. What I don't like is when we sort of end up divided into camps, because we're all sailors, and I see the youth sailors quite happily sail, you know, 4:20 in the morning and then go winging after lunch. And I'd say to people who haven't tried foiling, do give it a go. I mean, there's boats out there that mean literally anyone could foil, and I'm certainly not very competent myself, but it's something that I would really encourage people to do. So with that note, I'm going to say sail fast, sail safe, and keep having lots and lots of fun. Hopefully see you on the show.
Okay, now if that didn't lift you up a little bit after all that other ugly news.
Much better.
Thank you, John. Good work.
I love
buddy.
his smile at the finals.
He is our eternal optimist. And I've been getting from a few of the Fozy saying, why don't you cover Jazz? And, you know, it wasn't, strictly speaking, it was not yacht racing. And I know a lot of you, however, nonetheless would like to hear from her. First of all, look at John's link. He's going to do some more reportage, but I commend to you Magnus the Magnificent, MTM's fabulous reportage on the Rule 69 blog about Jazz. And there's another sailor that's member is about to go around too, and Magnus has been telling us about that. But go look at what Magnus has written the last 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 or 5 days. And if you don't have a subscription to his Rule 69 blog on Substack, get it. It's worth the money. So we need to, Gordon Smith saying we need to attract a diverse world of participants. This is diversity in all its meaning. If your local high street is multi-culti, then so should the sail club. Yeah, we all agree with that. Let's get everybody and make sure that everybody feels welcome in our beloved sport and is welcome.
Yes.
And more. John Emmett, Coaching Corner, get to the front of the fleet. And thank you, John, for that. And remember that I got some more news about this next slide, but we've been talking since the end of January about getting parasailing back into the Olympics. And when the conclusion then from the experts of that panel that John put on about parasailing was that we should get the demonstration event back in focus and on the calendar for the 2032 games in Brisbane.
Right.
And Alistair's been working on that too, and a lot of other Aussies have as well, because at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the Brisbane Organizing Committee. They have the ability, I'm told, to choose 1 or 2 other additional demonstration events. And we can get back in as a demo event, then maybe, Julie, we could get back in as a regular event in the Paralympics. Parasailing is the most obviously inclusive of all para sports.
That's probably
Yarbahe.
true.
Good point. Yeah, but we need some very serious fundraising too, and it's not, like anything, any high, not just sailing, but any high-level sport takes money to do it right. Okay, well, we're an hour exactly into our regular Tuesday and Friday show. No show this Friday, but we'll, because it's our 4th of July here, but we'll be back at it from Michigan. I go back for my annual familial visit over the 4th of July weekend in Michigan at my home club, Portage Yacht Club. Julia?
Sir.
July 1st, what happened? That's really not sailing related, except I used the album cover for the Stag Cruise poster last year. That's pretty remote.
Oh, the Beatles?
It was the Beatles. What happened on this day in history? In 1967.
Oh, that was an Ed Sullivan show?
No.
No?
That was in the 63.
Oh.
This was late in their career. Here's your clue.
Sergeant Pepper came out.
Didn't come out. Alan Long, they're in Farnborough waiting for customs. Almost 10 p.m. Tired? Anyone in the UK going to Lytham? Well, what else happened with that group, the Beatles, and their album, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? I see no one in the chat has this. Usually Blake Middleton gets it. Well, it's not, as I said, strictly speaking. Well, let me go back to that. It's not, on this day, it's not strictly speaking related to yacht racing. No, the Beatles didn't even split, although they were about to. On this day, in July 1st, 1967, the Beatles hit number 1 with Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Oh, okay.
It's my favorite album of all time. That's why I put it in here. It's many people's favorite album of all time. It's often regarded by people and radio stations and beyond as the number 1 album. The Beatles hit number 1 with their 8th studio album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. They were done touring by then, which featured such classic Beatle tunes as the title track, What Would You Do If I Sang Out of Tune, with a little help from my friends?
Yes.
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And then our favorite song, Julia, When I'm 64, da 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 da. And that talks, hey, I have a sailing connection. We have a sailing connection, because they talk about the Isle of Wight in When I'm 64.
Oh, yeah.
A little cottage on the Isle of Wight, right?
Okay.
From memory. That's how that song goes. And A Day in the Life. Sgt. Pepper's was the Beatles' 8th number 1 album and spent 15 weeks at the top of the charts in the U.S. It went on to win the Grammy for Album of the Year, the first rock album to ever win the top award, and was inducted into the National Recording Registry by the big deal, the Library of Congress, in 2003. A critical and commercial success, Sgt. Pepper's has been certified 11 times platinum.
Wow.
By the Recording Industry Association of America.
It's maybe the only Beatles album I have. Oh, I have the White.
Yeah, the White Album.
White Album.
Great album, even though Ringo was out of tune, as usual. No less an authority than Dogzilla Monster, a.k.a. Stingray, up in Seattle.
Yeah.
The Beatles' response to Brian Wilson's Yes, Pet Sounds, R.I.P. Brian Wilson. Yarbahe. Okay, well, that's what happened on this day in history, and I had to bring that to you. Tangential as was the sailing connection. Pretty remote.
Yeah.
We managed to get a couple. But this next one is directly related to sailing because it's our AAAA.
Lovely.
Haven't had one in a couple 3 weeks. And here we go with Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote, the first of 2. And he's in the UK. He's just had dinner or lunch, I guess it was, at, can you name that club? A clue in the back, if you're looking out through the windows, that is Hyde Park.
Oh, yeah.
I have sat in that room many, many hours. I gave a speech there, actually, with the America's Cup and with the big fella and many other people of note. And that is, of course, on the left. He texts like a kid, me. And so David Graham and I. He says, me with David Graham, CEO of World Sailing at the Royal Thames Yacht Club, sharing a bottle of 2000, one of the highest end reds in the world, high 2003 Penfolds Grange Hermitage.
Yes.
Hermitage, Australia's most famous wine. And here is Alistair's first video.
G'day, Tom, Julia, and all the Fosey. This is Alistair with AAAA. It's been a while since you've seen one of these, but I think Tom's got a couple in the can for you. Anyway, here I am in Ireland, in Dublin, at a mate's house, staying here. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Quick look at the surrounding area there. Absolutely beautiful. So a couple of things to report to you. I just want to talk about my meeting with David Graham, the CEO of World Sailing. Firstly, just let me say what a great guy he is. He's a seriously good guy doing a very, very tough job. We all know some of the pressures that World Sailing's under and some of the things that haven't gone so well for them. Sailing is under a lot of pressure, particularly at future Olympics, and to retain even the number of classes we have in the Olympics. And a big part of that has been because of the very poor media and TV coverage of Marseille, where it really failed to hit most of the targets there, which is very disappointing. Sailing has to work for TV. It's where the income comes from. It's absolutely critical to our survival as a sport in the Olympics. David and his team are working very hard on that as a major priority, looking at the professionalism of the coverage, looking at, in particular, at event formats, which obviously need to be fixed. We can't have a debacle like we had in the women's windsurfing competition last time in Marseille. And they're looking at every possible way of making it more packaged, more presentable and more appealing for TV. Importantly, we need to avoid bad venues like Marseille. You know, I was in Marseille and that weather in the second week was a debacle. So with David, we discussed 2032 in Australia and the shift to the northern locations, like Townsville and those other clubs that are north of Brisbane. I support that move, but we'll need to work very, very hard with clubs to determine who is to host, how they're going to host, what venues are going to work, because there's not a lot of apparent infrastructure for supporting major Olympic regattas or regatta up north of Brisbane. But I do support it because it means we'll be going to a venue that's or venues that are more likely to have breeze. We then discussed San Pedro, and that decision made the day that I met with him, so there's not much we could achieve. I did tell him I thought it was a terrible decision, that it should be in Long Beach. Long Beach is the home of Olympic sailing in the USA. It's got all the facilities. It'd be a much better place to be compared to that awful industrial port of San Pedro. He just simply said, David said, that it was all very, very political. It all happened at the local level, with the local authorities. It wasn't World Sailing's call, and that's the way it is. And all I could do was express our displeasure at that. We then discussed parasailing at the Olympics. He was very optimistic, and we are pushing for both the return of the sport and as an alternative, as a demonstration sport alone. There's a big push at World Sailing. It's totally the IPC's call, and it's suffice to say that they're being lobbied very hard by World Sailing and Australian Sailing. No sport has ever made it back after being dropped, which is kind of significant. But David was actually pretty optimistic about sailing, and there's a very big push. We have the likes of Australians Matt Allen, Daniel Belcher, and Siobhan Bruland, who are all on World Sailing committees. Australian Sailing is pushing it really, really hard. We've got the support of the local authorities in Brisbane who do want to host as part of the Olympics. We will simply keep pushing. We will keep the pressure on. But I was very encouraged from talking to David. He thought it was a damn good chance of it. We'll keep the pedal to the metal on that one. We'll just keep going. But just let's keep discussing it. Let's keep pushing it at every opportunity. Let's put it in front of all the right people. But I felt pretty good after that discussion. So all in all, a good meeting with David. I really like the guy. Tough job he's got, and we should give him all the support we can. Cheers, folks. That's all for AAAA for this week. Bye.
Well, except it's not all from AAAA. And Alistair, thank you. It was a beautiful report.
It
Nice
was.
to hear it right from the horse's mouth, so
And
to
how
speak.
nice to have him as a rep for that purpose,
Well,
or for any
and-
purpose. But
and
I mean,
no doubt the wine and the meal was pretty good too.
oh yes,
Right?
yes,
Alistair, he's just such a class act.
he is.
Huh?
Yes.
Alistair, thank you for that. And now there's more news out of Australia. This is just breaking in the last 24 hours. You know who that is, Julia?
Mr. Page.
Malcolm Page, OAM, Order of Australian Merit, I think that is. He has now been announced as the new CEO of Australian Sailing. Bravo, Zulu. Terrific guy. Great news. We're really proud of him and Australian Sailing for getting him in as their new CEO. As you know, he was a double Olympic medalist, first as a crew.
Yeah.
And there's the medal maker there in the middle, their famously good coach. And then the skipper decided to go away, and he then said, I'll take the helm. And he got another gold medal on the helm.
Mm-hmm.
So Australian Sailing is pleased to announce the appointment of respected sports administrator and dual Olympic gold medalist Malcolm Page as its new CEO. Page brings a wealth of experience to the role with a celebrated career both on and off the water. As one of Australia's most successful Olympic sailors, Page secured gold medals at the Beijing 2008 and London 2012 Olympic Games and was named Australian Sailing Male Sailor of the Year on not one but two occasions. His transition from elite athlete to sports leader has seen him serve in senior roles with, people forget he was at World Sailing where he ran communications.
forget
Yeah,
that.
he was.
Yeah.
Before he came to U.S. Sailing, where he served as the chief of Olympic sailing. Before, sadly, he came apart. You remember with whom? The non-sailing CEO.
Oh, yes.
Crouton that he was. That was sad loss
Yes.
to lose Malcolm Page. He remains solidly connected to the grassroots of the sport, having been commodore of his local club, the Manly 16-foot skiff sailing club from 2021 to 23, and is a current director of Australian Sailing. So sort of like as I had been on the board and then got hired, off the board into the executive director / CEO role. We wish him the very best.
Absolutely.
And Mal there on the right in that in that photo from 2012, having also gone on, or having already won a gold medal in Beijing in 2008. Terrific guy. Here is a photo you may remember we aired here. This is the Etchells Worlds earlier this year
Oh, yeah.
with Mal there on the left and Rasa Bertrand, the wife of the famous JB, John Bertrand, and then the equally famous, because now he's a Fosey. He could put Alistair Murray with his title letters afterwards and then Fosey. We should start using Fosey as like...
Yeah. As a
commemorative, or what's that word I want, Julia?
honorific.
Honorific. Well done. Andrew McIrvin says that Grange 2003 is 316 pounds a bottle.
Wow. Oh.
Well, I wonder whose expense account that was on. I hope it wasn't World Sailing's, but nonetheless, these guys deserve it. And this is a terrific piece of news. And guess what? Alistair also's got another video that he sent. Upon hearing this news, I'm sure he knew it was in the works. Here's another AAAA from Alistair Murray.
G'day, Tom, Julie, and all the Fosey. This is Alistair with AAAA here again in Dublin. I just filmed one and I'm doing another one now. I want to discuss the appointment of Malcolm Page as CEO of Australian Sailing. I am thrilled, and so is he. He's landed my dream job. If that job had been around 20 years ago, that would have been my dream job. I think it would be the ultimate way to spend your life, be a brilliant career. So our last three CEOs have all been good, but they've all been non-sailing CEOs, Tom, and you know how that goes. They've actually been three good people, but to me, the CEO needs to live and breathe sailing. They need to have it in their DNA. They need to know the history, the personalities, the classes. They've got to be intimate with the sport. There's no option as far as I'm concerned. Malcolm is all that and more. As a sailor, he's won 2 golds and 2 at the Olympics in the 470. He's won countless world championships. He still sails 16-foot skiffs and etchels, and he's a sailing dad, so he's involved with junior sailing as well. As an administrator, he's got a good track record around the world. He's worked for World Sailing and US Sailing, both I think of which, both treated him pretty shabbily in the end. He was doing a great job for both, and he should have been given more of a chance. So I invited him to join my board, my Australian Sailing Board, and he did. He stepped onto the board, and now, ironically, he has to step off because he's going to be an employee of the organisation. I actually think that's fantastic. As a person, Malcolm is engaging, positive, enthusiastic. He's very hardworking and honest, and he's also a very smart guy. He will hit the ground running, ably supported by Siobhan Bruland, who's a really good president, my successor, and a great Australian Sailing Board. Suffice to say, they all want him to succeed, and he'll be getting all the tools that he needs. He will succeed, and so will sailing in Australia. Bring on Brisbane 2032. It's in great hands. As I said at the beginning, I'm thrilled, but most importantly, Mal himself is thrilled beyond belief. This is his dream job, and he can't wait to get into it. Cheers, folks. It's all good. Bye.
Nice stuff, Alistair.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Super.
very much. Super stuff, eh, Julia?
Absolutely.
Huh?
Yes.
It's nice to have John and Alistair and our other correspondents from around the world. If anybody else in any country wants to do similar reportage from, we don't often have, we get Hamish Ross and Richard Gladwell sometimes.
Right.
Anybody else who wants to come on and do a regular report from their corner of the world, we would appreciate it very much.
Sure.
Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote, Julia.
Yes. It's
You got a warm spot in your heart for him, I know.
I do.
As do we all.
Yes.
Steve Gruber saying, replying to Yar Bahe, Yar, what would you suggest for different sailing events other than course racing? Well, I wanted to get into that a little bit too, Julia. We can. I love that music too. You love Australia.
I do.
So do I.
And I love the atmosphere they create.
Well, and look they're just going to go from strength to strength.
Yeah.
That country's going great. The UK goes great. A lot of other countries go well, and hopefully Charlie's going to get the US back on track as well.
Yeah.
But look, I'm not going to rant because I've done enough ranting for the day. But guys and gals, Commodores, ladies and gentlemen, why is the television coverage for the Olympics going in the toilet? It's because the classes, nobody wants to watch these classes because they don't, for the most part, because they don't relate to them. Mm. We had a lot more viewership, a lot greater, higher viewership when they sailed the classes that everybody knew about and sailed and had been around. What's the most interesting Olympic class now by far? Oh, it's a 50-year-old boat called the Ilka.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Are we going to kick the Ilka out of the Olympics now because it's 50 years old and it's not a foiler?
Yeah.
Julia, it doesn't foil. We got to get the Moth into the Olympics because it's a foiler. Notwithstanding, it only costs $80,000 or something. So this is bloody ridiculous, and it is no mystery. It's simple. Put the classes back in that everyone in the world does. And I'm not talking about 6s and 8 meters and maybe not even the Starboat, although that's probably one that ought to go in.
Yeah.
Go back to yacht racing on courses out in the open water in the style of yacht racing that most of us grew up with, are familiar with, and still do. Put match racing back in because that's the America's Cup. That's what people understand.
Yeah.
And stop trying to create and reinvent the sport for television. Go back to what works in our sport, big picture, long term, around the world, and then put that back in the Olympics. And I suspect our viewership would go way up. Christian Price, World Sailing needs to up the broadcast, sail media, do the 18s.
Yes.
Do the Aussie 18s, the Sydney Harbor 18, every week. Triangles and blue screens is not drone footage. We had 4 drones last weekend.
Yes.
And the coverage was superb. And we're out in the ocean. This is not stadium sailing down there in Long Beach.
Right.
Or in Newport Beach. We're out in the ocean. Okay, we're 150, 200 meters off Newport Beach,
And it's all volunteer.
but it's all volunteer, and our coverage was, if I do say so myself,
Really excellent. Yeah.
just fine. Fog Machine, a.k.a. Lance Burke, one of our good friends here at St. Francis Yacht Club in the Bay Area. Marseille, although I think he's up at, didn't I hear him say that he's up in, is he doing Transpac? Or tell me, Fog Machine, tell me, Lance, in the comments, are you doing Transpac? Marseille had wind problems, and Alistair's absolutely right. That was a crutonic venue, again chosen for political reasons, which messed with the TV schedule, as you Brits would say. Couldn't possibly happen in San Pedro.
Oh, yeah?
Gordon Smith, I respectfully disagree, as I do with you on a lot of different issues, sad to say. The progressive that you are. Okay, guys, let's get to another notable, beautiful venue with great sailing and great turnout. Turns out, Julia, this is midway through the 2025 season, more or less, for the World Match Racing Tour. You can see the yellow up there at the top of this chart. They are now in the GKSS. You know what GKSS stands for? That is the Royal Gothenburg Göteborg Sailing Society, the yacht club up there in Göteborg. And it's the GKSS Match Cup in Sweden, started yesterday, runs through this weekend. And a fantastic event it is in Marstrand. And if you look over here, this is the downtown, and it's an island. I've always said how nice sailing is on an island. Have I not been saying that ad nauseum?
Yes.
And they race right out here in this area. Sorry for the square, but I don't want to go up here and change the difference. But
Yeah.
I can get a line, and I can draw a line here, but that's too hard. This rocky outcrop along here, now let me go back to the square. This rocky outcrop is where, it's the longest days of the year. It's warm. It's beautiful. Look at this. And the public go there and sit on that rocky outcrop and watch the racing right out here in whatever that sound is called, I don't know what that's called. Forgive me, but it's fabulous. Do they have zoning requirement for orange roofs? Clark Chapin is asking.
Of course.
Yeah. And look at this event, the GKSS Match Cup in Marstrand, and look at the beauty of the shots that our Fozy James Pleasance sent to me this morning.
Oh.
I went on their website,
Yeah.
and the headline is Picture Perfect Opening Day. This was yesterday at Marstrand, and it's just a fantastic event. I've got some prose here somewhere about that event, and I'm going to read it if I can find it. But it's... I may not be able to find it, but they are having a terrific event. Let's leave it at that and just enjoy the photos from Marstrand and what is going on at the GKSS event. And remember, it's both on the men's tour and the women's tour. And the usual suspects are in the lead, but the racing, as you can see from this photo, has been intense and tight and fabulous, as has been the weather. True Arena Sailing, Gordon Smith is saying, fantastic venue with terrific audience, the start of the school holidays. Yes, it is July and the holidays. Are those Far East 28Rs? That is a good question. I believe if you look on the quarter, it says exactly that. Chris, actually, well done. Isn't that what that says in the fine print right here? Oops, I got to go back to the square. I believe, somebody will know, but I believe that's what it says.
28R, yeah.
Far East 28Rs. Andrew McIrvin says they were lucky last week the RC44s had gales. Yeah, well, it's that, you can have that time of the year where you can have fabulous weather, or you can have, in fact, Andrew, when I was talking back on that Transat race thing, they've taken that boat in tow and they put the crew on the big French ship.
Right.
But Andrew was telling me, he and I talked by phone, and thanks again to Claire, Vice Commodore Claire Harrington, Andrew McIrvin. He says that they're headed, right now it's pretty peaceable and calm there in the North Atlantic, but they're headed for some heavy weather. So it's going to get a little dicey. I hope the tow goes okay.
Me too.
There's a nice note from Gordon. I find it the sign of a true friendship that you can both disagree and tease your mates and still meet up again the next day to laugh about it. That is true.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do with Julia and I. I tease her. She criticizes me every day and my very thin skin.
Oh, I do.
And my very weak ego can't take it. But because you never know when you're going to get locked in an elevator together. We could still be in that elevator.
We could.
We called our next door neighbor, and the next door neighbor said, "Sorry, I'm up at Lake Tahoe." He's a retired fireman. He would have gotten us out of there one way or another.
Yeah.
Fantastic event. I commend it to you and look in on it. We'll have a full report, at least with the results, next Tuesday. As far as the America's Cup and AC 2027, the 2027 AC 38 in Naples, I'm going to push the crickets button again because that's all we're hearing is crickets. And that's bad news because one hears the lawyers are beavering away. As I said I'll get rid of the crickets.
That's too bad.
They're beavering away, and it's only a matter of time, apparently, when things get filed, and we'll see what happens. Alan Long, Tom, I love in all due respect that you can mock the progressive ideas, yet the conservative trickle-down thing is not preserving our sport. Again, all due respect, nobody has to say all due respect. Just if you disagree, say so.
Right.
Firmly and politely. I'm happy to have it, Alan Long. Thank you. And I have the right to ask for diversity and working across the aisle. There are no bad ideas. Fair enough. But Alan, my point is, Julia, is that everybody keeps saying we got to have more foiling boats. We got to have different race courses. We have to have it up against the shore. And the numbers, Julia, keep going down. And you know what the definition of insanity is?
Yes.
What's the definition of insanity?
Do the same thing over and again and expect
hope for different.
Yeah.
Expect different results. So let's have some new ideas. And one of the new ideas I submit to you is to go back to what we used to do. Now, I don't know what's going on with this. I hope this does not end up in court. I really hope there's a settlement that they get a protocol, that they get themselves sorted out, but it is not sounding good. And regardless, it all starts with this club. Fine people, I'm sure that they are. It's a great clubhouse, a nice location. I've had a lot of time there, a lot of fun there over the many years now. But they are sadly the worst trustee in America's Cup history. That, of course, the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. They have delegated illegally and inappropriately and more their trustee duties, fiscal authority, to the team, which is strictly prohibited not only by the deed of gift, but by New York law. Jeff Ogle, I think, is agreeing with me that more proof that real sailboats are cool. Alex Hayworth,
yes.
And he's had a lot of, he and I often, well, I wouldn't say not often, Alex and I don't always agree, but he always is sending good information and good comments and reacting to things I'm saying, and I appreciate it, Alex. He's saying, looking forward to a partial deed of gift match in Cascais, Lisbon in September of this year.
Wow.
Well, we'll see.
That would be interesting.
And Alex thinks that the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron will be, sadly, dissolved for trust purposes by the New York court. Well, I'm not so sure about that. I hope that doesn't happen.
No.
But Crutonicism is and has been afoot in the America's Cup now for years.
Yes.
Ever since Mr. Dalton was able to run away with the candy store. Is that a mixed metaphor?
Yes, run away.
Let's get to an event. We'll wrap this show up with very positive news. We're an hour and a half in. We do this every Tuesday and Friday, except this Friday we're not going to do it, nor the following Friday, but we'll do it next Tuesday. Thank you for joining us. We'll do the last leg, and I've saved the best for last today because down at beautiful Balboa Yacht Club, the sun rising in the east over the top of BYC, a club of which I'm proudly a member. We hosted the Rose Cup, the United States National Youth Match Racing Championship down there last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We were live with a 15 or 16 person broadcast team, all volunteers, all basically club members. and a professional broadcast. I hope many of you were
From
able
the
to
water.
From the water, yes, not from a sound booth in Connecticut.
Yes.
There is the governor, or the Rose Cup, rather. It was named after Andy Rose, not by him, but by locals who gave the trophy in honor of Andy and all he has done, another of our FOSI and dear friends, for all he has done for youth match racing, including this event, the U.S. Youth Match Racing Championship, which was started by Balboa Yacht Club 15 years ago and then adopted by U.S. Sailing as a national match racing championship for young people. Hence, the Rose Cup is an invitational event open to sailors who have reached their 16th birthday, but not their 21st, during the calendar year in which the event is held. And we had 16-year-olds there sailing. In fact, the runner-up was 16,
Yes. And
Sienna Nichols.
she's highly thought of by them.
And every one of these kids was a superstar on and off the water. The championship features world-class coaching and race management. It's what Dawn Riley would call a clinigatta. It's not just a regatta, but also a clinic, at least in the early couple days. And the race management serves as an world-class coaching and race management, and serves as an outstanding training ground for young sailors who are interested in match racing and focused on competing at the next level. There was the list of skippers from across the country. I won't read all of them. You probably heard me talking about them. I was the person on the commentary team. It was the host, and I would run through every chance I got. We'd name not only the skipper, but all the crew.
And the clubs.
And yes, thank you, Julia, and their club. Their clubs. And there they are again. There's the hometowns, but we also named their clubs because we think that's important. Speaking of the clinigatta, two-time Governor's Cup winner, one-time Rose Cup winner, one-time World Youth Match Racing Champion, Jeffrey Peterson, a FOSI, here on this show. He's been on this show any number of times. Not only in the 2 days prior to the regatta, gave a clinic, a high-level clinic, along with Frankie Dare, who is the head coach at Balboa Yacht Club and another Gov Cup veteran. But then each night, the kids came in, and this is from, I believe, Friday night after the racing. Jeffrey took, you see on that screen, that is our live broadcast video, or it's a recording rather of our live broadcast. And Jeffrey comes in and plays it back and forth and then does the chalk talk using our video. So the kids learned a lot, needless to say, and kept learning right through the end of the regatta, although there was no active coaching, to be fair. There's no active coaching once the racing gets going in earnest on Friday.
Well, it's fun to
Saturday.
hear them talk about how well they, each of the crews improved throughout.
Yeah, we had Jeffrey on the commentary on Saturday anyway. He came on, he was in a coach boat running around, and then he came on to Adios with us. And the kid is really bright, and he's a hell of a good sailor. But he's also, his brain is wired at a megahertz or two. In fact, I had to sit him down Sunday morning. I said, Jeffrey, if you come back on the broadcast, and we hope you do, but he was too busy to do it Sunday, you got to slow down just and take a breath, because we can't, everybody watching can't quite consume the fire hose of information that you're rattling off. But the kid is amazing, as were all these other kids, as Julia was saying. The conditions were superb. We had 75-ish, 24 Celsius, both days. In fact, that was the prediction, was 6 knots of breeze on Saturday, 7 miles an hour, but give or take, same thing at that speed, wind speed. And it actually ramped up, Julia. We had, to everyone's surprise on Saturday, 14, 15 knots of breeze. And on Sunday, likewise, maybe 11, 12. And the conditions were fabulous. It's light in the morning. Go ahead.
Champagne conditions.
Yeah, Andy did. We hate to say that, but there are the boats towing out. The race committee blows a horn, and at 9:30 or so, the kids dock out and are towed out to the Pacific, which is just on the other side of the spit of land. That's the Newport Peninsula right there, the yacht club behind us in this shot. And then the breeze did come up, and the racing, as Julie was saying and Jeffrey Peterson was saying live on the show, these kids improved steadily through the weekend. And I must say, 16, look at this. She's a 16-year-old. She was the runner-up, Sienna Nichols. This kid is a sophomore. The skipper here, Dylan C., from across the harbor at Newport Harbor Yacht Club. They're all 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and they sail well above their age. Astonishing. Their boat handling, their tactics, their comportment on shore just gives one not only great faith in the future of our sport, but also in the future of the world, if we could have a lot of kids like these.
Yeah. A couple of the announcers says they're sailing not at 1.0, 2.0, they're at 3.0.
Yeah, this is fabulous. Such a great regatta. One of my favorites to work, Larry Kennedy, was saying, well, Larry Kennedy also worked, he is the father of one of our TV, Colin Kennedy is a member of our TV team, and Larry worked all weekend with another Fozy, Peter Taylor. They were working the ILCA, what was it, the North Americans, Nationals, Larry, at Sewanaka Corinthian Yacht Club. Mm-hmm. But beautiful weather, great photos from Tom Walker, who's a dear friend and another Balboa Yacht Club volunteer, goes out on the water, takes these pictures, puts them up on his website so that all can see. The kids can have them, we can use them. And just amazing conditions with a superb race committee from, again, Balboa Yacht Club, and using spinnakers, Dogzilla Monster, spinnakers with S sails, symmetrical spinnakers, not A sails, which makes for great downwind passing potential. The U.S. Nationals, Peter Taylor says, they were running at Sewanaka, the ILCA, the Laser Nationals. Dylan C. came out on top. He won the finals 3-1 ahead of Sienna Nichols from Balboa Yacht Club. Dylan and his team from the Newport Harbor Yacht Club. There was a requirement, Julia, that Andy and I have debated at length whether it's a good idea. It's a U.S. sailing requirement that there be at least one person of the opposite gender on the boat, because Sienna Nichols has 3 girls and 1 boy. Mm-hmm. The other teams, for the most part, had 3 males and 1 female on the boats, but there is one person of the other gender on the boat. And I think it's a fine rule. I think it's okay, especially at this level. So bravo Zulu to Dylan. He sailed magnificently. He was pushed hard by Sienna and her team, which included her twin sister, Maddie, who was born 15 seconds earlier. Now, how do you do that? I was told it was 15 minutes, and I was saying on the broadcast that her minutes. Twin sister, she's 15 minutes younger, but it was 15 seconds younger. How does that happen? Oh. They both drop out in a hurry?
I guess so.
C-section. Her mother, who was on the race committee, she was the mark. She was doing the mark setting. Melanie Nichols. Yes. She said, "No, it was 15 seconds." I said, "Well, how can that possibly be?" What do I know? C-section.
Oh, I'm glad to know that.
Exactly. Yeah. And the traditional, what we've seen in the Gov Cup now for many years, from another Fozy, Leo Takahashi, and Harry Price, another Fozy who won the Gov Cup. They all hop into the water. Water's cold, too. It's not warm. Yeah. But it's fabulous stuff. And here's the runner-up team, Harrison Strom from San Diego Yacht Club and his team, another superb team. And John Rogers, Coach John Rogers from the San Diego Yacht Club was a big help with insight and information through this regatta. And Harrison beat Team Pine, James Pine's team. And he had a twin brother sailing with him, which is unusual. And they're from the South Carolina Yacht Club, the Pine team. And the Pine team, another Fozy, Baton Kennan is his real name. And he helped sort me out because I thought South Carolina Yacht Club was in Charleston, South Carolina. It's not. It's in Hilton Head, which is a couple-hour drive. Yeah. But these kids all sail back and forth between the Hilton Head Yacht Club and Charleston Yacht Club and yada, yada, yada. Nice. And they were representing the South Carolina Yacht Club there. Sailed very well, lost the Petit Finale, the consolation match, 2-1 to Harrison Strom's team from San Diego. So there is the runner-up, the team from Balboa Yacht Club, and the 16... where are they now? That's the gold. That's the silver. That's the first place team. I beg your pardon. I've got the first place team on here now. Did I skip that other? I did. Let me go back.
Yes.
There it is. There is the runner-up team from Balboa Yacht Club, and the twin sisters on the opposite ends. 3 girls. That's girl, boy, girl on that team. Mm-hmm. And 3 minutes is not 3 seconds, Pedro Sailor is saying. Yes, thank you. But it was an amazing performance, particularly by the top two teams who, I mean, gutted it out. They're hiking. They're fully hiked, and it's getting lumpy on Saturday afternoon and even Sunday afternoon in the breeze, and they're fully hiked. These are 16-year-old kids. They're tired now.
Yeah.
They've been at this for 5 days.
Yeah.
2 days of clinic, 3 days of racing. And the spinnaker hoists and sets got a little loosey-goosey, and a couple of takedowns were not precise, but astonishing stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
From kids. And there are your winners. This Dylan C. on the right, who's I believe a sophomore. He's only 18. In fact, he's 17, about to turn 18, I think. Our crack spotter on the TV team told us. Mm-hmm. Bravo Zulu to the Newport Harbor Yacht Club. Here's Team Strom from San Diego Yacht Club, the third place team. And they all look like they're Aussies and Kiwis now. The Americans no longer wear shoes. You see that? Mm-hmm. They got a hoodie on, pulls the hoodie up to protect their head from the sun, the skipper does, and they're sailing barefoot, looking more like Leo Takahashi than Leo or Harry Price. And there's the rest of the list. Dylan C., Sienna Nichols, Harrison Strom in third. James Pine, we told you about, was fourth. William Stratton, Noah Stapleton, Freddie Parkin, who's the brother of Jack Parkin, who we know well from, and the Parkins are from the Greenwich, what's the name of the yacht club in Greenwich, Connecticut? The Riverside Yacht Club, which is just a stone's throw to Claire Harrington's home there in Greenwich. Chi Yan, also from Balboa Yacht Club with a good team, and they came on. They learned a lot and got better and better. And then the two teams from Texas, Gavin Galloway's team and Hayden McCready, not only are they both from Texas, but they were both from Houston. Indeed, that was the Battle of Galveston Bay.
Yeah, that was fun, and they really did play that too.
They did. They played it up nicely. Finally, I just say that the Gov Cup TV team, people cannot believe it's an all-volunteer team. Arguably the only pro on the team, aside from if you call me a pro, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, since freshman year in college, but this kid, whose name is Dylan Bartels, who's a brand new member of the team. I found him last summer during Governor's Cup, and he was doing our audio. He now is doing way more than that up top on Adios, which is our broadcast boat. And again, Julia, we go out on the water, not in a sound booth. So Andy and Matt Whitfield and I as the commentators, Jeffrey joining us, can look across the race course, see what's going on, and be knowledgeable about what's going on. See the kids coming, and they use our boat as a pick. We're set off to the starboard end of the start-finish line so they can come around, circle around us, use us as a pick if they want to, which gives us terrific television shots. Yep. And this team, again, of all volunteers, and I won't read the names, but you'll see them all again in action at Governor's Cup in 4 weeks' time. Mm-hmm. And the message here is that if our yacht club down there can do it,
so can yours.
So can yours.
Yeah.
Exactly right, Julia. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you just have to decide. We're going to have a house committee. We're going to have a race committee. We're going to have the Big Boat Series organizing committee, or the whatever your signature event is. And by the way, we're going to form a committee called the TV committee. And we're going to get kids involved. And a lot of people here are not kids. Andy's 70, whatever he is, as am I. And a lot of these kids are in their 40s. And they are all, with a little guidance from me and from Chris Bretschker, who's there on the left, who is also not a television guy. He's self-taught. He's our executive producer, director, and is fabulous. And he's taught all these kids how, kids compared to Andy and myself, and how to do TV.
The drone drivers,
have come so far.
Ooh, yes.
And it's hard.
It's scary.
Because they're trying to keep the drones above the mast height, but every now and then we say, hey, can you get down to water level and get us a low shot, especially if they're looking up sun.
Yeah.
And Chris Bretschker is talking to them all the time on comm. We now have good comms, so he's talking to them. And then this kid, Dylan Bartels, I was telling you about, who's new to the team, he's switching the show and doing the audio, and he's listening to us. And if we say, hey, look at that on such and such, Then Chris tells one of the drone operators, go in there and get a close-up of the leach of that mainsail so we can compare its trim to the leach of the boat they're racing against. And they're all, guess what? They're young, they're self-taught, but guess what?
They're all sailors.
Exactly. They're all keen racing sailors. There are no non-sailing CEOs, non-sailing drone drivers, non-sailing anything on here. They're all sailors. And they like it. They're part of a team. They get a T-shirt. You know, we keep them nutrified and hydrated. Enough about all this.
Yeah, no, but it is true that if you say, we're going to do this, and I don't know anybody to do it, well, then ask around.
Yeah. Sewantica Corinthian is going to host the Rose Cup next year. I doubt we'll come do the television, but Larry, there's no reason why you and Peter Taylor and others can't get a TV team together out there at Sewantica and at Oak Cliff and beyond. I commend it to you all. And we'll be, as I said, we'll be at it again doing Gov Cup. And during Gov Cup, this regard, it was easy. We didn't have to go in and do morning, evening shows, press conferences, prize givings, because U.S. Sailing said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Well, why not? We're happy. No, don't do it. So,
but it wasn't televised at all, was it?
No, none of that stuff was. None of the shoresides was because they didn't want us to do it.
Oh, but think of the parents.
Well, exactly. So that's why during Gov Cup, we do 10 live shows in 6 days. We do the opening dinner and the Meet the Teams thing on Tuesday night, and right on through with morning shows and press conferences, 2 days of live racing. Notwithstanding, we were out on the water for 9 hours. We did 6 hours live on Saturday, live, and 3 hours live on Sunday. And we dropped, you know how we always look at the number of frames here we've dropped. We're hardwired to the internet here with, you know, high-end equipment and big computers and Ethernet cable. So far in this show, we've sent 300,000 frames, 30 frames a second, and we've dropped 0 frames. Well, on this over the weekend at Balboa Yacht Club, Chris Bretschker and the technical side of that team dropped 0 frames using Starlink.
Wow. Yeah.
Josh Tozo is on. Josh, nice to see you, former member of the U.S. Sailing staff. We did live coverage of Hinman at Sewantica, and Hinman is the national, what is that, team racing championship, isn't it, Josh? In 2017, the Hill acts as a great natural theater for live in-person spectating. Okay, enough about all this.
Good to know.
Get our sport on TV. This is a video world. And I'm still surprised there's not another live video podcast like this. It's not hard to do, is it, Julia? as long as you don't get stuck in the elevator on the way to doing the show. Okay, that's it for us. We get to the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Julia, and I just have 3. Bannerow says, I love the press conferences at Gov Cup and Meet the Sailors, director's chair interviews, all that stuff last year. Yeah, we'll do that again. Yep, we'll do it all again at Gov Cup in 4 weeks' time down at Balboa Yacht Club. Julia, please help. I'm not homeless. I just need money for sailboat. I think we've run this before, haven't we? Yeah. But Greg Phillips, bless his heart, he sends stuff, and so much of it can't be used, Julia, because you would be shaking your finger at him. Well. But thank you, Greg Phillips on the Gold Coast in Oz for that. Now, several of you sent this one. What are the loudest sounds on Earth? Concert speakers. Ooh, that second one's washed out, but it says fireworks. The yellow one is fireworks. Gunfire, third. Blue whale is even louder than gunfire. I didn't know that. The space shuttle taking off is even louder. And then finally, the loudest sound on Earth, sailors yelling, "Starboard! Starboard!" Did that clip? I've got a noise. I got a limiter on here and a compressor. Yeah. Starboard! It doesn't look like it's clipping. It's staying at minus 6 dB on the little meter.
I always think of Blackhaller, who always did it to distract the other, especially when it wasn't all true.
Well, you can't. Clark Chapin will. I got to get rid of that green. Clark Chapin will tell you that if you shout starboard when you're on port, you could get protested for gross misconduct.
And that's probably started because Blackhaller did it consistently.
You can't do that. But yeah, Clark's also worried about you dislocating your wrists from too many finger wags.
Oops.
Good thing you don't have arthritis. But I'll give credit for that one to Andrew McIrvin because he sent that. I think he was the first one to send that, and several others of you did too. Finally, it just, because I didn't have a lot of time to put in funnies today, but Blake Middleton's regular final closing, which we can all appreciate, all the smartest people sail. And you got to be smart and physically fit to sail, which is why our sport is so great.
For lifetime.
For a lifetime. You can do it from, tell me what, 8 to 88. And as my father has, at age 92, he still sails. Not very much because his hips and knees and so on just can't really take it, getting from side to side in even in light air. But I'm headed to Michigan tomorrow, and we'll be out there for 10 days, and we'll do a little racing in his boat. I'll sail his boat in the Thursday night races.
Oh, that'll be good.
And it'll
who's taking video?
Clark Chapin will be racing. We'll be racing against him. And a couple, 3 other boats, and there probably will be no video, but maybe some photos from aboard our boat.
Oh, good.
Maybe some photos from aboard our boat.
Okay.
Yeah, Clark is reminding my dad raced until 89, and he did race 1 or 2 races last summer, I know. I heard from one of my brothers who took him out, my brother Paul. We had a J24 in our fleet that always yelled, "No insurance!"
Oh, that's nice.
Great stuff. Julia?
Yes?
You like to say...
Don't forget, it's so important to like, follow, and share, and do all 3 because it expands our audience.
Does, and it expands everyone's, I don't even look at the likes, but or the views rather, but we had over 6,000 views of Saturdays. I haven't checked Sundays racing. I'm sure we had more, but we co-streamed to 5 different platforms.
Yeah.
And we had over 6,000 views for the Rose Cup.
Yeah.
And, it can't hurt.
Yes.
Can't hurt. So, and we also, as you all know, we leave comments are welcome, even in replay. And left, right, or center. And if you disagree with anything we say on here, we'd rather hear it from you in the comments.
Yes.
Or directly via email or text or something, because we appreciate how smart our FOSI, our audience is.
Oh, yes.
And how worldly.
Yes.
And on and on and on. Julie, we also appreciate all the FOSI who give us, especially those who give us a few bucks a month to help keep us on the air. It's viewer-supported media, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated to become a patron. And give us, as I said, a few bucks a month. It's much appreciated, as are those whose audio, video, and images we have used for this show and others. Julia, final thoughts?
Well, this is a fun time of year when there's so much going on. You can't pay attention to all of it, but it's fun to jump in and out of it.
Jump in and out of it every Tuesday and Friday.
Yes.
Except this Friday.
Well, speak for yourself.
I'm going to be sailing on Friday, so just reminding you our July schedule. No show this Friday, the 4th of July, our Independence Day here in the USA. We will do a show from Michigan next Tuesday. Next Friday, the 11th, the following Friday, no show. I'm traveling back here midday. The only time I could get a flight from Detroit back here at a less than exorbitant price. And then our regular Tuesday and Friday shows the following 2 weeks. And then we'll be down at Balboa Yacht Club on Tuesday, the 29th, for a special Gov Cup preview live from Balboa Yacht Club with Christine Gribben, the regatta chair, and maybe others. All shows as usual, 1300 Pacific, 1600 Eastern, 2000 UTC on our YouTube channel and our Sailing Illustrated Facebook page, both. As Larry Kennedy is saying to those of you who are celebrating it, happy 4th of July this Friday, this weekend. Happy fireworks. Hope you have a great and safe 4th of July travel and weekend. In the meantime, go sailing.
Yes.
And sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. And, of course, we'll see you next Tuesday. Ciao for now.